about adding in things to make us feel a certain way. Subtracting things out. Removing the traumas, the limiting beliefs, the self-sabotage, and what you're left with is your natural state, which is just loving, whole, complete as you are. No baby comes out knowing anything. We're conditioned. It's our environment. It's our stories. It's the people around us that influence you. This is what I call addition through subtraction. Easier to remove the things that are conditioning you in a certain way than it is to add in a bunch of techniques and whatever. You follow? So how do you do this? Well, in this video, I'm talking all about a little thing called shadow work. There are two sides of the coin. There's the head side. This is what we project to the world, others see. These are your good traits, your charisma. This is you caring, your selflessness, the best version of you. But then there's the part on the shadow side, the other side of the coin. The other side of the coin is what others don't see. Parts of yourself that only you know about. Every time you snap, you're impatient, the traumas, the limiting beliefs, the I'm not good enough, they won't love me, your insecurities, your doubts. This is the second side of you. And if you know anything about human beings, we work much harder to avoid pain than seek pleasure. It's how we're wired. You're gonna work harder not to lose $1 million than you would to gain it. You wouldn't go to Vegas and bet your house with 50-50 odds because the fear of losing it outweighs the fear of doubling. And so what I'm here today to tell you is that side is controlling your life more than this side oftentimes. This is kind of what I call the 1.0 you, the shadow side, and the 2.0 you, your higher self. You don't actually consciously pick up this stuff. These beliefs, these doubts, these insecurities. A lot of times these come from environment growing up, parenting, what you did or didn't get as a kid, childhood. They can also be as recent as relationships you had in high school, college, 30s, 40s, 50s. It doesn't really matter. A lot of these can actually mess with you and you hold on to. And sometimes we don't even know what our shadow side is. By definition, if it's unconscious, it's not conscious right here. You can't process it. Some of the shadow work we'll talk about here, going and removing some of the layers, getting to a core story that you didn't even know you had, can be so liberating because you can only deal with what is brought into the light. You can't go around in the darkness and try and fix things. You got to shine light on it first. Understanding, reasoning. Don't just take my word for it. Let's actually look at two studies on how this can benefit you. Famous study by Dr. James Pennebaker was done in 1988, and where he assigned 50 undergrad students into two groups. The first group was instructed to write about one of the most traumatic experiences of their life. The second group instructed to write about anything superficial or materialistic. It didn't matter, they just had to write. Each group did it for 4 days in a row. 6 weeks later, the group that wrote about their traumas, got it off their chest, experienced better moods, fewer illnesses, they were less sick, less visits to the student health center than the superficial group. Pennebaker thought this was pretty cool. How can just writing about trauma, even if you don't even have to resolve it, you didn't even mention that at all, how can that result in better physical health and assumingly mental health? There's actual physical benefits to getting something off your chest. We hear that saying a lot. What is that saying? Getting something off my chest. It's weighing me down. Just listen to the language we have. It's depressing around shadow or trauma or limiting beliefs, things that hold us back. One of the biggest mistakes I see people make is they get confused with self-development. Okay? And the other thing I'll talk about. Self-development is all about bettering yourself and self-improvement. Right? You get out there, you maximize, you take action, you hustle, you grind, you build things. You go out there, you conquer, you get your goals. It's a very masculine energy to it, right? They confuse that and they look down on the other camp, which is self-healing. There's no emphasis on the inner work, the shadow self. And so once I started getting into some of this shadow work and doing it on myself, once I started doing some of the shadow work techniques, doing shadow work, alignment work, it's amazing what happens when you get on your own team. Isn't that really what loving yourself is? Being on your own team? Not being pinned against yourself? It's not you looking in a mirror like, mirror on the wall, to myself, oh yeah. When you think there's a monster under the bed as a kid and you shine the light under there and you realize there's nothing there all along, so many times the beliefs, the things that are limiting us in our life are just like that monster. You shine the light on them and they go away. It's a process. This is not a one and done. This is not a quick fix. That's why it's called shadow work. If you're willing to put in the work, explore it with some playfulness and curiosity as well. I think it's one of the most beneficial things you can do. Thank you so much for being here. Love each and every one of you. Stop settling, start living.